I'm very excited to share with you information about how we can improve the ethics around artificial intelligence and what our roles are. How does UX research change when you're talking about artificial intelligence? So humanity, people, this is what it's all about. It's all about how these systems are going to actually help us improve our lives, make information more easily available to us. These are the goals of AI. It is not to take our jobs. It is not to scare us. And it is certainly not to cause harm or to in any way make our lives more difficult. These systems have to be designed in ways that are beneficial to humans. And that is our role as UX researchers, is to understand the problems and the people and what we're trying to do with these systems. But humans are imperfect. I don't know about you, but I have made some pretty amazing mistakes, including missing a flight or not understanding the directions I was given or just simply not following those directions. We are imperfect in so many different ways, and we bring all those imperfections to AI. AI is simply bringing information that was created by humans, and as we heard Oveta talking about yesterday, and that is going to be flawed. It's going to be inconsistent. It's going to be only as good as the humans who are creating it. So let's take a step back. What is artificial intelligence? So it's present when the data is given to the system, so it exhibits intelligence about whatever topic it is. It can perceive its environment, so it understands something about what is going on in whatever problem set it is. And it can take an action. It can make a decision to improve the chances that it is actually going to succeed at whatever goal it is given, be it a game of Go or chess, or be it self-driving, or be it simply being able to find information within a large set of data that is harder for humans to find. And there are lots and lots of different types of artificial intelligence. I'm not going to get deeply into this, but machine learning and artificial intelligence are basically used interchangeably, and that is a fine way to talk about it. There are lots of individual pieces, so natural language processing you may have heard of. There's lots of work around speech, speech to text, text to speech, and being able to use that to communicate with computers is really helpful. And then there are lots of other things, including robotics, of course. All of these are different types of AI, but all of these are only algorithms. It is basically computer programs that have been written in a way to solve a problem. And they know only what we teach them. So they cannot, for example, your Alexa, if you have an Alexa or some other device at home, it cannot do anything that you have not programmed it to do. So it will not turn on your lights or turn off your lights unless you do the programming to make it do that. So they can control only what you give them control of, and they're aware of nuances, and they can continue to learn, and that's the wonderful thing about these systems, that they can continue to pick up more and more knowledge about the topics. So these are taxonomies and ontologies coming to life. These are not learning the way humans learn. When we are babies, we put things in our mouth to taste them. We touch things, we feel, we see, we use all of our senses. We're humans. These systems don't learn that way. They simply take information and try to understand the organization of that information and then make connections between that data. Very, very different from how humans learn. And they're not sentient. We are no closer to the singularity than we were 20 years ago. I was at a talk last week by Ray Kurzweil, who you may recall coined the term singularity, and he said it's going to be a while. So you are in no danger of being overtaken by a computer any more than you were 20 years ago. These also are not black boxes. So when someone says, oh, we don't know why it's doing that, turn it off. That is irresponsible, and that's not the way to manage these systems. You can understand why they're making the decision. It's hard. I'm not suggesting that it's easy to figure that out, but it is knowable. It is not a black box, and if it is, your responsibility is to turn that system off. You should not be running anything that affects humans that you don't understand to begin with. You need to understand these systems, not you necessarily, but the people who have actually created the program better understand what's going on and be able to control it. So you may hear, we need an AI for that. Remember, we need an app for that? This is the new version. And this is, as you can imagine, dangerous. Why would we need an AI to solve this problem? Tell me about the problem. Let's try to understand the people and the systems and what's going on there. So let's do our UX research. Let's really look at these problems, these systems, and try to dig in a little deeper. AI might be the right solution. There may be plenty of other ways to solve this problem. And AI in particular takes weeks to months to create and to become a solid, accurate system. You may be able to just hire a few more people and get the same job done. It's important to understand what the problem is and why this system might be right for it. So today, I'm really going to focus on 3 key areas on how UX research and the work that you're doing really can help to support these systems and the people using it. And it's around provoking discussions around 3 different areas. So it's content and curation, the training of these systems, and then the management of these systems, and really looking at those 3 aspects and deeply understanding why decisions are being made and what decisions will be best for the users. So a little bit about ethics before we get into that. Ethics are based on well-founded standards of right and wrong. And these are prescribed of what we ought to do. So these are many philosophy classes talk about ethics, and you can look up all kinds of presentations on ethics. But generally, these are an agreement that we make as a society, as an organization, within your team, and these are around rights, obligations, what kind of benefits you want to provide to society, fairness, and virtues, what you want to do, what your goals are. And so having an agreement around this is really important. This is not the trolley problem, though. Many of you may hear people talking about the trolley problem in AI, particularly with regard to self-driving cars and other things. It's not the trolley problem. It's too late when you get to the point of vehicles making decisions or any AI making a decision, and I will show you why. I will give you a little warning, though. If you are adverse to seeing blood, this is not going to be a great video for you. You may want to close your eyes. This is a brief video from The Good Place, if you've seen it. In the scene, we have an ethical philosopher, and he is arguing with the I will give you a little spoiler, a devil or a demon or however you want to think about what the situation around the trolley problem. And he's trying to explain it, and he's like, as an ethical, person, trying to think this through and trying to really explain it in a very academic way, which clearly I can't do very well. And the other character is saying, this, you're right, I don't get it. And then snaps his fingers, and they're on a trolley. And so they're on a trolley, and the main character is in the control, and you can see on the tracks, there is a set of construction workers on one set of tracks. And the idea is that there are 2 choices for this trolley. It can go to the left or it can go to the right. If it goes to the left, it will kill 5 workers because clearly they can't move off the track. But right, so they're going to get killed potentially. Or on the other side of the track, there's 1 worker, and he has to decide which of the workers he's going to kill. But clearly, we could jump off the track. There are a lot of issues with this to begin with. We could stop the trolley. That's never discussed. But anyway, he runs through and kills all 5 construction workers because he can't make a decision. He's got some issues. But the point is that it's too late. It's too late at that point. That's not where the AI makes a decision. That's not where these systems are making decisions. All of this work is done way before, like way earlier. It's done when you're hiring people. It's done when you're helping them to decide what this AI is going to do. It's done very early. It's way too late at the time of that decision point. The system has to already know what ethics are. The system has to already know it's supposed to protect humans. It's too late at that point. So I highly recommend you look up that video, though. It's very entertaining. So ethics in UX. I said there were 3 decision points. We're going to talk about content curation, training, and management. This is all so that we're helping our users to trust these systems. We're going to talk a lot about trust, I think, this week. And the problem happens when someone looks at a system and they don't trust that the system is giving them the right answer, or they don't trust who made the system, or they don't trust that the system's trying to steal their job, or they don't trust for whatever reason. And having all those questions means that they're probably not going to use the system, and so therefore your job will not be probably working very long, right? You won't have your job for very long. So our job is to help prevent that doubt, to help the people to trust the system, to help them to reduce the questions that they have about the system so that they can actually get to the point of using it. And that's really hard. So let's talk about the content and curation piece. Content has to exist, and a lot of it. These systems take huge amounts of data. It has to be available to you. So there are free sources of information. I don't recommend that you use those unless you've vetted them and made sure that that's actually the right content for your users. You need a high number of variety within the area, but at the same time, it has to be high quality. It has to be consistent. It has to be machine readable. There are lots and lots of constraints around the content. And if you don't have the content, you can't make a system. All too often, we see people doing all this work on the algorithms and not really worrying too much about the content and the data. But that's the key to these systems. If they don't have good data, it doesn't matter how good the algorithms are. It's not going to work. It's not going to provide value to the users. You may have seen this movie from a very long time ago. It's Short Circuit. And in this movie, this robot gets struck by lightning and becomes sentient, because that always happens. And the robot is wanting more information, more input, needs input, needs input. And so goes to Ali Sheedy's character's house and begins reading maniacally these dictionaries just as fast as possible. But that's what these systems do. This is a nice mnemonic for what an AI system needs. It needs huge amounts of data, very, very quickly inputting as much as possible, but it still takes weeks to months to build these systems and to get them to the point where they're accurate enough for your application. So this content, this data, and the AIs, all of this is biased. And it's biased because, again, people are making data. We heard that quote yesterday. People are involved in all of this, so all of this is biased. And bias comes in many different forms. So this group of lovely women, it's all women. Nothing wrong with that. We can have content made by all women. What if this is an image recognition system and we only show it women's faces? What if we make all these white, which has happened? And then it doesn't recognize darker-skinned people. It becomes racist in a way just because of the data it was given. These systems only learn based on what they're given, and if you're not giving them diversity within the set of data that is appropriate, it won't understand what diversity is. It won't understand what your system is trying to do, and it will give the wrong answer and potentially be biased in a way that is very dangerous for people, especially if you're doing things around people, decision-making around jail time or sentencing or things like that. All of a sudden, you're creating a really dangerous situation for people, and human lives are at risk. So this is all due to a variety of different situations that we all live in. We all come in, as we know, as UX researchers, we all come in with our own backgrounds, our own experiences. We bring all of that into these systems as well. So if you have a group of programmers who have all gone to the same school, that's great. But that also means that they're not going to be thinking differently. They're all going to be thinking very similarly about these problems because they all had the same professors. They all took the same classes. They all learned the same way. And so the work that they're doing is going to be consistent, but it may not be good enough. It may not be the work that you need. And same with our experiences. If your team, if everyone went to the same program, we're not actually that diverse. Even if we look diverse physically in our other ways, we may not actually be that diverse. So there are lots of different ways that diversity can be meaningful in these systems. And you really need the right humans to reduce the bias. You need the right group, and that can be very different depending on the problems that you're solving and what diversity means in the particular context. So with the content, the questions that you need to ask as a UX researcher are, what has been curated? What is the content? What do our users need? What's applicable for the problems that they're solving? Who is a respected source? Who will they look at and say, oh, I see, that content I trust. This is information that I believe in and I know is going to be helpful to me. And what is diversity within this content? What is going to be representative enough to cover the breadth of the problem that I'm trying to solve? So the system, the AI system, is only going to be as good as that data and the time you spend improving it. And if you don't have the time, if you don't have the data, it's not going to be very good. Training is the next piece. So you've got all your content, you go into training, and training is really just much like when you were in college or high school and you were highlighting a book or trying to make connections between different concepts. That's what these systems are doing. They're simply trying to understand, similar to tagging or labeling, what is this Okay, this is a book, okay, and what is this? This is an author, and the author is the author of the book, and just making those relationships so that the system can understand the information. These systems ship stupid. They don't know anything. You literally have to teach them everything. You can purchase pre-made AIs, but at the same time, you're still going to have to teach it your vocabulary. You're going to have to give it some information about what your particular problem is. So they don't know a lot at all, and they can only know a very narrow set of information. So who are these experts? Again, this is where our work comes in. Who would be trusted by our users? Who would they see as being relevant to their work? Who would they think was not just paying more money to be able to be training the system? If you need to find these people, how will you vet them? How will you understand if they are the right people? And then, are they even available? Are they so busy because they're a physician or a lawyer or someone with very limited hours that they actually can't help you to get the system to the level that you need it to be? And then how are you going to maintain quality? How are these individuals going to be able to continue to interact with you so that you can continue to improve the system and make it really excellent? So these are a lot of difficult conversations. And unfortunately, in some situations, you may not have the leverage to be able to ask them, but they need to be asked. And we can use the user needs to leverage these questions and try to continue to ask the tough questions. Another topic is just the accuracy. What is appropriate for our users? So if we're in an e-commerce situation, it may not be that the system needs to be super accurate. So if I'm searching for socks and shoes come up, I'm disappointed, I'm annoyed, not the end of the world. On the other end, if I'm in healthcare or transportation and the system is recommending chemotherapy that is inaccurate, the wrong treatment for my cancer patient, that is a big deal, and that is something where it becomes very dangerous very quickly. And so thinking about that accuracy is really important for your context. The thing is, the more accurate you need these systems to be, the more time it takes. It can take years to make a really highly accurate system. Do you have that kind of time? Is that the type of investment that makes sense? That's a lot of people, and that's a lot of work over time, and it may not be the best solution. Management. This is my most favorite part of the work because it's the most important part. This is how we actually keep people safe. The content curation and training are how we make a smart system, a good system for our users, but the management piece is what keeps everything moving. And so we must be intentional. We really have to think about, what would happen if it became HAL. We don't want it to become HAL. Let's put those stopgaps and measures in place to make sure it can't become HAL. Why can't they just turn HAL off? Really? Create that switch. Make sure that switch is available and there, and make sure someone can turn it off. Otherwise, the systems aren't actually helping us. They're not supporting us if we can't turn them off. So make it your business to keep people safe and understand in context what's going to help make people feel safe. What is it, the thing that's going to help them see the system as something that's helpful to them? The first step is creating a code of ethics. So really thinking through, what is this system for? What do we value in the system? And what lines won't this AI cross? Where are we going to draw the line and say, it will never do this? We will make sure it doesn't do this. We will test it exhaustively to make sure it does not do this. And how are we going to track our progress? There are lots and lots of codes of conduct and codes of ethics out there. Beijing just came up with one that I'm a little skeptical about, but you can look at many of the major organizations and companies around the world are starting to create these, and so you can use them as a model and either adopt them wholesale or make your own. But it's important to really have an understanding across the organization. So you can also do exercises. You may have seen Black Mirror Brainstorms. This is a great activity where you just think about what's the worst thing that could happen. How bad could this get? And then what are we going to do to prevent it, but also what are we going to do to mitigate the circumstances if that happens? So if it does become a Nazi, what are we going to do? And you can also do abusability testing, which, just, again, thinking through. Humans misbehave. You know that, right? We misbehave. We like to misbehave. You will have people misbehaving with your AI and trying to train it in ways that you don't want it trained, or trying to give it the wrong information. How are you going to mitigate that? How are you going to deal with that? It's a reality that you have to think through with AI. So there are all kinds of unintended consequences, but you need to prepare for that. Don't just say, oh, we didn't think. No, come on. Of course, people misbehave. Any mom, I'm a mom, I can tell you, everyone misbehaves. But who can report it? How can I, as a user, go and say, listen, this system isn't giving me the right information, or this system is reacting very weirdly, or this system isn't recognizing my face? How can I go through and point out these problems to the system? And then how do I turn it off? Who turns it off? Who gets notified it's been turned off? And then what are the unintended consequences of turning it off? So if I no longer can use the system as a user, what are the consequences then? What's my backup plan if this has become the system I rely on for these answers? What am I going to do now? So thinking through all of this ahead of time is going to protect your users. This is a really important step. We have to ensure that humans can unplug the machines. This is a quote from Grady Booch. He's an IBMer in a TED Talk. He has a full TED Talk on that. We have to make sure that we are always in control, that these systems are made for the betterment of humans, and that these systems are really supporting us and making us more powerful, more helpful, more able to do things that we want to do, cure cancer, protect people and vehicles, whatever it is that you want to do. These systems should be supporting us, supporting all of people, and not causing us more grief than we already have. And this is a cycle. It's a constant cycle with these systems. This is never a set it and forget it system. I was at a talk last week by Kathy Baxter from Salesforce, and she talked about the idea that it takes a village. And it truly does. It takes an entire organization to make an AI truly helpful and keep it supported and provide it with new papers, new documents, new information, and then train it, and then continue to manage it. This is not something where, we're just going to fire that whole department. We'll have this AI do it. It doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. These systems need constant human oversight. They need you to be making sure that the humans that are using it are having their needs met. These systems really require a lot more management. It's just a constant cycle. So I challenge you all to evangelize for human values in AI and to make sure that the systems that you're making are ethical, transparent, and fair by doing the work of representing the users. Go out there and make sure that you're asking really tough questions and understanding a bit about how the systems work, but more importantly, how they're going to affect the users and how the users are going to respond to them, and making these systems work for people. And I'm happy to continue the conversation. This is a great tweet where the image recognition couldn't quite tell the difference between dogs and muffins. Yep. Blueberry muffins. So.